And that is actually the bold ambition that we have set ourselves out for, is to deliver a smoke-free future by focusing all of our resources developing and commercializing smoke-free products that are less harmful than smoking, with the aim of completely replacing cigarettes as soon as possible.
Welcome to Technovation. I'm your host, Peter High. My guest today is Michael Voegele. Michael is the Chief Digital and Information Officer of Philip Morris International, or PMI, a leading international tobacco company working to develop a smoke-free future. The company earns in excess of $35 billion in annual revenue. In his 5 years with the company, the first 2 of which he was the CIO and CTO, Michael has led a tech transformation that's mirrored the company's transformation towards smokeless products. I look forward to hearing more about the innovations he and his team have introduced, while also understanding the skills he's grown in his team, among other topics we'll cover. Prior to his time with PMI, Michael was the Group CIO of Adidas. Michael, welcome to Technovation. It's great to speak with you today.
Thank you, Peter, for having me. It's a pleasure.
The pleasure's mine. Well, Michael, I thought we'd begin with your company, Philip Morris International. Can you provide a brief overview as to the business that you're in?
Look, Philip Morris International is, I would say, almost a dinosaur, hundreds of years old, not hundreds of years, but quite old of a company. I think we're best known in the past for our products in the combustible cigarette space, like Marlboro, for instance, as one of the big brands still around the world. But over the last 10 years, we have also been pushing away from the combustible cigarette space into what we call smoke-free product portfolio. And that's where we're leading the market today as well.
Excellent. And could you take a moment and describe your role as Chief Digital and Information Officer, please?
As it says, Chief Digital and Information Officer. Of course, I run the traditional corporate IT department across the world for Philip Morris International. And the, Chief Digital Officer comes in because we have very, very early recognized that it's not just about deploying technology into the business, but we also have to unlearn what we have done in the past and relearn in context also of the shift of our product portfolio, how we do business. So it's clearly at the intersection of I would say, enabling business growth and business value with the help of technology.
And I know from our past conversations, Michael, that the company has changed dramatically just in the past decade, and technology has been a major, and digital have been major catalysts of that change. And I wonder if you could take a moment and describe some of those consequential business changes that took a more than 100-year-old organization with a single product into a much broader portfolio, and in many cases, tech and digitally enabled in ways that wouldn't be recognized by colleagues of yours a couple of decades back.
Sure. Let me allow to go a little bit broader, because I think we need to go to what is the problem. And I think it's estimated that there are around 1 billion smokers still today who continue to smoke globally, despite decades of restrictive regulations, public health campaigns. And we truly believe that these are measures that must continue, but also we believe that people who continue to smoke deserve access to innovative, better alternative that actually exists today. And there's no doubt that the best choice that every smoker can actually make is to quit tobacco and nicotine completely. But we also know that many don't. So by empowering those adults who would otherwise continue to smoke to switch instead to better alternatives, we can make cigarette smoking, the most harmful form of nicotine consumption, obsolete. And that is actually the bold ambition that we have set ourselves out for, is to deliver a smoke-free future by focusing all of our resources developing and commercializing smoke-free products that are less harmful than smoking, with the aim of completely replacing cigarettes as soon as possible. And when we look back, when we started this journey, I think we invested more than $12 billion into the development of those products, into the scientific substantiation of those products. And from 2015, when we started to commercialize, until today, we have today more than 10 billion in revenues, which now account for almost 40% of our total company revenue. And I think that's a significant journey. When you just look at these numbers, there's not many companies that have actually generated 10 billion of revenue out of nothing. And I think that's where, we need to anchor that transformation, it does mean that from a traditional one product, one channel company, we have become really a multi-product, multi-category company that now operates across more than 15 different touch points, not just with the wholesalers, the distributors, or the trade, but also actually engaging directly with those consumers, those adult smokers that we try to convince to switch to better alternatives if they don't want to stop smoking what they're doing today. So it's really targeted to that consumer segment, legal adult smokers, that we want to give an alternative if they don't want to quit.
And talk a bit about the role that tech and digital plays in this significant transformation. New segments to your business, as you note, new means of interacting with customers. Talk a bit about the role that tech and digital plays.
For sure. I mean, when I just explained new channels, we didn't have a competency that we're talking about consumer to direct channels. So how do we do this? We have regulatory environments where we allowed to sell our products online. We never had an e-commerce shop. We never had our product is a little bit, I would say, explainable when we started from a product feature development. So we had actually what we called coaches that engage with our targeted consumers and explain the product and the benefits of the product. We didn't actually have, a supply chain where we can actually ship electronic products to the consumer, but also then actually have returns coming in and dealing with those returns. We didn't really have a social media presence. So when we look at this, we had to build in a very short time the entire marketing capabilities, commercial capabilities, but also manufacturing and supply chain capabilities of a consumer direct business. And I think that's where we really came in providing those technical capabilities to the organization to do all of those things today across more than 80 markets already. In such a short term, I think that's it's a great, I would say, contribution that we could have made to our vision, which is to deliver a smoke-free future.
Very interesting. And I know that you're passionate about the convergence of technology and business skills and do all that you can to foster that convergence on your team. Can you talk a bit about, first of all, what you mean by that, but also the mechanisms you're using in order to bring that reality to bear?
Look at today, everybody's talking about AI, Peter, and everybody talks about, hey, let's bring in another technical solution that will help us to create productivity, efficiencies. Some even talk about top line growth. And I think this is where the big mistake starts. Actually, it's not about the technology. It's actually about what business challenges do I have? What consumer feedback do I have? How can I actually use technology, and specifically now with AI, actually maybe to even redefine my approach, how I bring my products to market, and potentially even changing my product away from a device to something that is connected and has real-time use information that I can actually help to deliver services or a greater experience. So I think it is really about that moment in time where we have to continue, and we have done this in the past, right? We talked about agile teams, product owners, Scrum teams that independently make decisions, which is actually already a convergence of business and tech skills in those product teams. And now I truly believe going forward, we'll see a stronger, much broader and deeper convergence, because if we really want to actually grasp the value of technology investments, we have to think about the processes, and we have to think about the people that run those processes as well.
And staying on a people topic for a moment longer, I know that you also think an awful lot about the culture that you foster within your organization. You've noted a people-first approach in developing your teams. Talk a bit about what you mean by that and how, again, that's brought about.
People first, I think you can actually apply it in what we do in multiple angles. I think one important one is that I have recognized very early, and we're doing this now since 3 years, specifically initially targeted to our IT teams. And we called it #fastest learning organization on the planet. Why? Because I strongly believe if you're curious, if you're looking at things and you're reflecting, I think that is where you can actually really bring value to an organization. It's not just developing yourself, it's developing teams and it's developing an entire organization. It is about challenging what you have learned in the past, and it's actually keeping what still makes sense, but relearning where you need to relearn. It's about this openness of your mind and actually looking at things not from an angle of, oh, I don't know what it is. Will I lose my job? Oh, this is too difficult. But being open and listening and actually taking in a lot of inputs that you can get in an organization. It starts with people. It starts with feedback. It starts with listening to experts. And then reflecting and adapting it to the organization. So that is an important aspect. And I think this is an important aspect specifically for technologists today in this fast moving, changing world of technology. You still want to be relevant in a year, in 2-3 years from now, and not just today. Now, when we actually then take this whole thing a little bit broader in context of what we just discussed, Peter, of the convergence of business and technology skills that will be critically important to actually really harvest and capture the value of technology investments, specifically in the AI field. That also means that we have to actually take the entire organization with us. How do you do this? We're 80,000 people. We have very early started to really partner with our HR department when it comes to the development plans. So today we have integrated in all the vertical development plans into the leadership development plans. We have integrated digital components where we talk about the impact of technology, where we talk about the importance of data, and not just the importance in data in context of the output, but all these fundamental elements of data governance, of data quality, which are still, as in the past, very, very important if you really want to move fast on new technology advancements.
Which brings to mind a topic you've already referenced, artificial intelligence. I know you have a nuanced thought perspective on the advances made and those to come relative to AI, informed by past emerging tech trends. Describe how the pace of advances in cloud computing and indeed in data and analytics offer perspectives on what might come relative to AI.
Yeah, I usually start with an example which comes from, I think it's 25 years back. We had a big hype in the industry, and back then it was called hosting. Companies that offer to host your compute and your storage in their data centers on your behalf. But back then it wasn't really taking off. You had this infrastructure as a service, but it wasn't really a big thing. Now, when we reflect today, when we look at the growth of our hyperscalers like Amazon, like Azure, like Google Cloud, I think everybody has understood that actually offloading that management attention to somebody who does this for a business is actually a good thing to do. And it gives you also new capabilities as an IT organization when we're talking about ramping up and ramping down compute based on needs, where we talk about resilience of your infrastructure and so forth. And then we moved into an age where I still remember big data. Everyone said, what is big data? At the end of the day, was about how can we accumulate as much data as we can potentially or possibly get, but then we didn't even know what to do about it because back then we were much more about reporting. We were looking backwards. There were early signs of, hey, can we maybe anticipate something coming up? And I think with AI, it's the same thing. We have a big hype. Everybody believes it's the secret sauce. Specifically, when I had conversations, everybody thought Gen AI will fix all problems. It's a very specific tool. By the way, AI is not new. We talk about AI for the last 15 years. But I think we're at a pivotal point, like with hosting versus cloud, like big data in the past, at a pivotal point where we now really see that we can apply this at scale and where we can apply it in a way that it really creates business value, not just from a productivity, efficiency point of view, but it can really, if we look at it in the right way, open new horizons in context of top line growth.
But it requires, as you mentioned a moment ago, setting that sound foundation, that it's important to get the ingredients right in order to achieve optimal performance and optimal results from that. Fair enough?
Fair enough. I mean, I think absolutely even fundamental. I mean, we get carried away into all these conversations about large language model A can do this, large language model B can do this. I mean, the big all professional services companies come in and show us these fantastic cases. But then you actually look at it and say, how can I actually do this in my organization? And you very quickly will figure out if you haven't in the past already taken those, what I would call hygiene factors very, very seriously, you will now really struggle and you will start to fall behind even more. And it's about data governance. It's about how you orchestrate and manage your master data, not just your transactional data or any other unstructured data assets that you might have. It's about your security approach. It's also about your thinking on data privacy. How do I secure this data? How do I make sure I just expose it to the people that actually need to work with it and not just federate it across the organization? So all these governance pieces, if you haven't done them in the past, I think you have a long runway until you can actually talk about generating value with it. We have done it. We have focused around it in the last 3 years. So I think we have what we call our launch pad now to really use technology as an accelerator in combination of taking care about the skills, competence, and confidence in people, but also being open to relook at how we do stuff from an operating model point of view and from a process point of view.
Michael, prior to your current roles as a C-suite executive at PMI, you were the Group Chief Information Officer at Adidas. And I wonder what you drew from that experience into this one. Some of the changes you've already mentioned in terms of business model, new segments developed, and so on. Talk a bit about how some of the overlaps in what you led and the business you were in have lent themselves effectively in your current environment.
Yeah, I mean, the company Philip Morris and Adidas, two different products, right? It's almost at the opposite end of the scale when we look at the product and say the emotions that you deliver with those products. But when we actually take this away and we just look at the organizations, they're pretty similar. 80,000 people in Adidas, 80,000 people in PMI. When we think about also the organizational model that you have categories like the basketball category and the soccer category, we have a smoke-free product category for inhalable and we have a smoke-free category for oral product. When we look at how the commercial organization is structured into regions, and then you have the markets below that, when the markets are the one that actually have the power because they're close to the consumer and there that actually deliver the revenue and the OI to the organization. So practically, I think when you extract away from the product and what you deliver from a product point of view, pretty similar organizations. And back then, and I think this was the big learning is, you really have to adapt the way you work. You have to actually think more cross-functionally. If you think about marketing and when you think about sales as two separate elements, you have already lost. You have to really be capable of opening up and thinking about, is there a convergence? Is there something that we can do differently instead of saying, I'm just holding the brand and I'm holding the sales. These things need to come together. And I think that what I took away into PMI as well, very clearly, is this openness to actually question, is this the right way forward? Do we still need to stick to what I call the siloed way of thinking of what my role is or my function is actually doing, and actually bringing these cross-functional teams together to start reimagining how could we actually even work better if we wouldn't be stuck in this old paradigm of I'm finance, I'm sales, I'm marketing. And I think that is something that I really learned in the past and that helped me really now also in my role in PMI to really bring cross-functional teams together and drive impact, not just for the function, but impact for the organization overall, and then ultimately for our target customers and consumers, because we want to actually convert them into the smoke-free product portfolio if they don't want to quit nicotine usage overall.
Yeah, very interesting. Well, we've talked about a number of trends that were in the hype cycle for quite some time before fully blossoming, others that are afoot, like artificial intelligence and some of your perspectives there. Are there others as you look to the future, Michael, that particularly excite you that you might highlight now?
Yeah, I think we look at a very broad spectrum of things, AR, VR, where would those things actually create value in the organization? I just talked to an ex-colleague or team member of myself who now is the chief digital officer in IKEA, how they use virtual environments to actually create a different shopping experience that might not be applicable for us. But I look at it in context of maintenance in our manufacturing environments and others. So there's quite a few things that we're really looking into. Metaverse, I'm not there really yet. We have figured out how that can create business value for the mid to long term. Specifically AI, generative of AI, of course, we are closely monitoring that and actually actively creating already value in the organization. But yes, we actually look at almost 10, 12 different things constantly. We look how they evolve from the initial promise that they have versus the practicality of bringing this into our business. And at the moment, we have consciously decided to focus all of our efforts on AI and Gen AI and not so much on the other things that we're monitoring.
Yeah, very interesting. I wonder also, as somebody who's been a global tech and digital chief at multiple scaled organizations, as we've discussed, as you reflect on your career, Michael, what were some of the difference makers or catalysts for your rise? What are some of the lessons that you might impart on others who might wish to have a career that looks a little bit like yours?
I got this question quite frequently. Specifically, I do some mentoring as well in the organization for talents. And they always ask me, Michael, how should this plan look like? Can I copy your plan? How was your plan constructed? How much did you look into the future? And honestly, I never planned my career. I never had an ambition to have a title, or I never had an ambition I want to have a team bigger than 10, or I never had an ambition to say I want to have a budget that is $1 million or whatever. So that never came actually to my mind as being something that I wanted to strive for. What really excited me was really the opportunities that I had in all of these organizations I worked, the opportunities to do something that nobody else has done before, where there was uncertainty, nobody knew whether it will really work, what the size of the opportunity actually was, but it was new. It was different. There was nobody that could give you advice how to do it. There was nobody training you on how this could work. And I think that was fundamentally what actually formed me and formed my career, is the curiosity, but then also trying really go down this explorer path in actually identifying new ways of doing things, generating new services, generating new experiences, actually at the end generating new revenue streams for the organization I've been working for. And if you take that a little bit, it is also about taking risk. It's about taking a step that maybe not all the time will work, but it doesn't matter because you will take a lot of learning with you, and you can, in the opportunities, they emerge constantly. And I remember back then, early days in my SAP times, we had a team meeting. My boss back then of the department was coming in, 50 people in the room, and he vaguely explained an idea that he was pursuing, and he was asking if anybody was interested in joining in and creating this. And 50 people in the room, and I jumped up. And I said, here, I'm here. So I will do it, right? Okay, fine. And then the 49 people sitting there saying, oh, I don't know what this is, how much effort it is. I don't know what I'm getting into. So I think these are really, for me, were career forming ways. And actually, at the end of the day, reflecting back, I think the things that brought me where I am today.
Those are very, very nice reflections, and I appreciate you sharing those in this conversation as well. Michael Voegele, thank you so much for taking time with me today, sharing a bit about the work that you and the team at Philip Morris International are doing, a bit about your career, more generally speaking, and some of the things that excite you as you look to the future. It's been a really nice conversation.
Peter, thank you so much for the opportunity. It was a pleasure.